We have breaking news coming in for you. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and other G7 world leaders stood together for a group photo at the G7 summit in Evian, France. Prime Minister Modi also met President Donald Trump at the G7 roundtable. Both leaders were seen having a conversation. The two leaders are scheduled to hold a bilateral talk tomorrow. This is Prime Minister Modi's first meeting after Operation Sindoor and President Trump's tariff war. For more on this, our assistant editor of Foreign Affairs, Siddhan Sibal, is joining us live from Evian, France. Siddhan, great to see you. What can you tell us more on this brief interaction between Prime Minister Modi and President Donald Trump and the bilateral meeting scheduled tomorrow? All right, Siddhan, if you have my voice from Evian, France, what can you tell us about this brief conversation between President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Modi, and what are we expecting to see from their official bilateral in France tomorrow?
Right, Susan, those visuals first I'd like to talk about. A short while ago, we saw those visuals. First, a family photo where it looked like both the leaders ignored each other completely, or what might have been the condition there. Perhaps they were engrossed with other leaders, but there they went inside the plenary hall, and then they were sitting together. Of course, they were seated together, and they had a brief conversation. We could see from the visuals. Obviously, we do not know what exactly transpired. We can only see the visuals from afar. But of course, we are all now waiting for a bilateral meeting, a sit-down bilateral meeting between the Indian Prime Minister and the US President. That will take place at 6:30 p.m. Tomorrow. That's Wednesday. This will be a bilateral meeting that comes after 16 months that both the leaders essentially are having an in-person meeting, of course, barring aside what happened a short while ago. And we know that this relationship, while it has seen a lot of positive momentum in 20 years, it looked like that under Trump presidency too, it faced lot of headwinds, and those headwinds included insults by Donald Trump, endorsing posts against India, the immigration issue, H1B1. Of course, tariffs are something that was the big concern last year when India was facing the tariffs. Of course, we know that both sides have now initiated trade talks, and trade understanding was achieved in February. The US chair is coming next week to have more conversations, but adding more problems. What happened last week, the killing of 3 Indian sailors, that of course has shocked India. There is mounting anger against the Americans, and many Indians are seeking apology from the Americans, and it looked like that hasn't been the case for the Americans, because we saw the readout by the US State Department of the conversation between the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and the Indian External Affairs Minister, and it does not show any sense of remorse. It has its own version of things, but clearly for India, the big focus will be an expected reset, a reset that could begin with both the leaders meeting tomorrow here in France on the sidelines of the G7 summit.
Yes, Siddhan, I know from the American side here, there are a lot of people who are hoping for that reset. And of course, you're there in the heart of the action. You're going to bring us all the latest, and we're going to be covering this bilateral meeting. Siddhan, since you're over there right now, what is the mood at the G7 with President Trump arriving in France? How are Europeans taking in this visit by the U.S. president with everything that's going on around the world, not just the Iran deal, not just West Asia, but also, Russia's war against Ukraine, what's happening in Europe, and of course, these tariffs too?
Well, when it comes to G7, like all G7s, there are global issues. This time around, there are 2 conflicts, but also a glimmer of hope with the US and Iranian understanding on what is expected to be an MOU, a peace deal, a much needed peace deal after months of conflicts and a fragile ceasefire. But specifically, when we talk about the US President Donald Trump, we know every time he comes to Europe, he comes with his own set of ideas. And this time, of course, it doesn't look like different. In fact, let me jog everyone's memory. The last time US President came to Europe was in January. He traveled to Davos, and at that time, the big concern for Europeans was the Greenland issue. US President was saying that he will take over Greenland, and that was a big concern for Europeans, and we saw a strong sense of unity and purpose that time. This time around as well, the focus remains as to perhaps how things can go forward. We have seen three bilaterals of the US President Donald Trump. First with the French president, the second with the Qatari Amir, and then of course with the UAE president. And all three bilateral meetings, it's Iran that has been dominating in terms of the public conversation. He has committed that the Hormuz will be opened by Friday. Clearly a big week for not only Europe but entire world.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I keep trying to interrupt you. I'm really sorry about that, Siddhant. Thank you so much for that update. We're going to be talking to you, of course, throughout the evening and throughout the day tomorrow as well. That was WION's very own Siddhant Sibal giving us all the latest on what's happening surrounding the G7.